My name is Chloe Miller, and I'm 31. For my parents' 40th anniversary, I flew 3,000 miles carrying a gift wrapped in gold paper, a secret I'd guarded for 5 long years. But before I could even step inside, my mother looked me dead in the eye and said, "We didn't invite you. Your sister planned this." Then my father shoved my gift off the table, his voice trembling with a bitterness that cut like glass. "We don't want anything from the daughter who abandoned us." I picked up that box and walked out. What they didn't know was that inside that box wasn't just a gift, it was the deed to the very house they were standing in. When they finally realized who had actually been paying the roof over their heads, they drove 14 hours straight to my front door in Denver, broken and begging for a forgiveness I wasn't sure I could give. Before we go back to the day this all started, if this story stays with you, please like and subscribe. It helps more than you know. And tell me in the comments, where in the world are you watching from right now, and what time is it there? Now let me take you back 5 years to the day I found out my parents were about to lose everything. I grew up in Hardin, Ohio. Population 4,000. Give or take a few souls who wandered off and never looked back. My father, Robert Miller, fixed pipes for a living. He was a man of cold steel and copper wire, someone who believed a man's worth was measured in the callus on his palms. My mother, Susan, worked part-time at the grocery store on Route 31, always folding her hands into a tiny square on a paper napkin whenever things got tense. Then there was my older sister, Amber. She was 4 years ahead of me in everything, and she was the sun this entire house orbited around. I don't say that with bitterness. I say it because it was the gravity we lived under. Amber was loud where I was quiet. She told vibrant stories at the dinner table while I cleared the plates. When she brought home a report card, it came with a victory speech. When I brought home the same straight A's, I'd leave them on the kitchen counter, only for them to sit there until Mom filed them away in a drawer, out of sight. There was this thing Dad used to do at family barbecues. He'd point his beer bottle at Amber, then at me, and say, "Amber got the brains. Chloe, well, Chloe's Chloe." Everyone laughed. I laughed too. I was 8 the first time I heard it. I was 18 the last time. The joke never changed, and neither did the audience. I decided to become a nurse, a profession where being quiet and observant was actually a superpower. When I graduated and got a job offer at a major hospital in Denver, Colorado, I packed everything I owned into 2 suitcases and a single cardboard box. I wasn't running away. I was just trying to find a place where I didn't feel like a ghost in my own hallway. The morning I left, June 15th, was my 21st birthday. Dad was under the kitchen sink, wrench in hand. I stood in the doorway, my heart thumping against my ribs, and said, "Bye, Dad." He didn't even crawl out from under the pipes. He just grunted, "Good. One less mouth to feed." I didn't leave because I stopped loving them. I left because staying meant disappearing entirely. For the first year in Denver, I called home every Sunday at 7 p.m. without fail. Mom picked up sometimes, sounding distracted. Dad never did. By the second year, the calls went straight to voicemail. When I'd text Amber to ask why, she'd send back a dry reply. "They're just busy, Chloe. Don't take it personally. You know how Dad is. He thinks you abandoned us by moving away." I sent birthday gifts. I sent Christmas packages. I even hand-knit a scarf for Mom that took me 3 weekends to finish. I never heard a word about any of them. When I finally gathered the courage to ask Amber if they liked the scarf, she sighed over the phone. "Chloe, I'm sorry. I think they threw it away without even opening it. They're just so hurt that you left." That sentence sat in my chest like a stone for months. I felt like a villain in a story I hadn't even written. But then, one Thanksgiving, my Aunt Linda, Mom's younger sister, called me just to chat. We were talking about nothing in particular when she mentioned, "Oh, by the way, your mom just loves that scarf you sent. She wears it every single Sunday to church." The world went silent. "Linda, Amber told me they threw it away." There was a long, heavy pause on the other end of the line. Then Linda said very carefully, "That's not what happened, Chloe." She didn't push it, and neither did I. Not that day. But a crack formed in the narrative I'd been fed, a crack just wide enough to see a sliver of light. I realized then that someone had been rearranging the furniture of my life and telling me it had always been that way. I didn't have proof yet, just a gut feeling that my sister wasn't just the golden child, she was the gatekeeper, and she was locking me out. The call that changed everything came on a rainy Tuesday in March. I was 26, pulling a grueling double shift in the ICU, surrounded by the rhythmic beeping of monitors and the smell of sterile hallways, when my phone buzzed with Aunt Linda's name. Her voice was tight, the kind of whisper that only comes when the truth is too heavy to carry. "Chloe, honey, I need to tell you something. Your parents are 3 months behind on the mortgage. The bank just sent a final notice. If they don't pay, they're going to lose the house by summer." I leaned against the cold hospital wall, the air suddenly thin in my lungs. "How bad is it? Does Amber know?" Linda sighed, a sound of pure exhaustion. "Amber told them she'd handle it, but I haven't seen any payments go through. Your father won't talk about it. He just sits on that porch staring at the yard like he's waiting for a miracle that isn't coming." That night, I sat in my small Denver apartment and stared at my own reflection in the window until the sun started to crawl over the horizon. I didn't call my parents. I knew Robert Miller wouldn't take a dime from the daughter who abandoned him. So, I called the bank, First National in Hardin. I spoke to a man named Mr. Harrison, the branch manager. He had that calm, patient voice of a man who'd seen too many families lose their history to a foreclosure sign. He confirmed the worst: 3 months overdue, foreclosure proceedings starting. Then, he said something that stopped my heart cold. "Actually, Miss Miller, someone else called last week claiming to be a family member. They promised to take care of it, but they never followed up with a single cent." I didn't need a detective to tell me who that was. Amber had made the promise to look like the hero, then walked away when the bill actually came due. That was the moment I realized my sister wasn't just careless. She was calculating. She was letting the house burn while telling everyone she was the one holding the fire hose. I told Mr. Harrison I wanted to set up automatic payments from my account, monthly and completely anonymous. "Don't tell my parents, don't tell my sister, not a word to anyone," I told him. He agreed. Then I called Linda and said 5 words. "Don't tell anyone, especially Amber." $2,300 a month. That is what invisible love looks like. I was a charge nurse, making decent money, but I wasn't rich. After my own rent, groceries, and student loans, that mortgage payment left me with exactly $200 a month for everything else. So I made choices. I didn't take vacations. I didn't go out for drinks with the other nurses. I bought my scrubs at thrift stores and my furniture from estate sales. When my car needed new tires, I bought the cheapest ones I could find and drove 10 miles under the speed limit whenever it rained. My boyfriend, Logan Carter, a carpenter with steady hands and a quiet way of seeing through people's walls, figured it out within 3 months. He didn't ask. He just noticed I'd stopped buying coffee on the way to work. Then he saw the spreadsheets on my laptop. He sat down on the edge of the bed and said, "It's the house on Maple Drive, isn't it?" I just nodded, waiting for him to tell me I was crazy. Instead, he just took my hand. "Okay, I'll start fixing the porch railing ourselves so we don't have to hire anyone for our place. We'll make it work, Chloe." That was Logan. No speeches, just lumber and a level. For 5 years, I worked every holiday, every weekend, every overnight shift I could get. Every month, $2,300 left my account and landed in my parents' mortgage. And every month, the balance got a little smaller. My parents never called. Not on my birthday, not on Christmas. But the house stayed standing. I never asked for a thank you. In my mind, as long as the roof over my parents' heads was secure, it didn't matter whose name was on the check. But I didn't realize that in Hardin, Ohio, a different story was being written. One where I didn't exist, and Amber was the saint of Maple Drive. Aunt Linda was my only window into the house I was saving. She'd call me every few weeks, her voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper. But one evening, about 2 years into my secret payments, her voice sounded different. It was harder, edged with a cold kind of anger. "Chloe, I need to tell you something, and you're not going to like it," she said. Amber hadn't just been staying quiet. She had told my parents she was the one paying the mortgage. Not helping, not contributing, paying the whole thing. According to Linda, my father had stood up at Thanksgiving dinner, surrounded by cousins and neighbors, and raised his glass. "To Amber," he'd said, his voice thick with pride. "The only one who actually cares about this family. The only one who stayed." Everyone had clapped. My mother had cried tears of relief. And Amber? She just smiled that practiced, modest smile and said, "It's nothing, Dad. You'd do the same for me." It wasn't nothing. It was $2,300 a month bleeding out of my checking account in Denver. It was every extra shift, every missed meal, and every mile I drove on bald tires. My sister was sitting in my parents' dining room, soaking up the credit like sunlight, while I was working 12-hour shifts in the ICU just to keep the bank from calling. But it got worse. Linda told me that Amber used her new hero status to convince Dad to put her name on their bank accounts. She was managing the family finances now. She was even added to the deed and the insurance paperwork, all with my father's grateful blessing. "She's positioning herself, Chloe," Linda said flatly. "And your parents are handing her the keys to everything." I felt sick to my stomach, but I still didn't call them. I told myself that if I exposed her now, it would destroy my parents' world. I thought I could handle being the villain if it meant they stayed safe. But then Linda told me the one thing that finally cracked me open. My father had told my cousin Tyler last week, "I raised one good daughter and one stranger." I hung up the phone and didn't speak to anyone for 3 days. Around year 3, the invitations to the holidays stopped entirely. A text from Amber for Thanksgiving. "Mom's not feeling well. Better if you don't come this year." Christmas. "Dad doesn't want any drama. Maybe just call." Easter. Nothing. Just silence. But through Linda, I knew the truth. The house was full every holiday. The neighbors were there, Uncle Steve was bringing his pies, and the laughter was loud enough to reach the street. Everyone was there, except me. Amber had built a wall around my family and installed herself as the gatekeeper. The final mortgage payment cleared in September. 5 years, 60 transfers, $137,412 total. The house on Maple Drive was free and clear. I watched the balance hit 0 on my phone screen, and for the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. Then, 2 weeks later, I saw it on Facebook. Amber had posted a public event, bright and celebratory. "Planning Mom and Dad's 40th anniversary party. Family only. October 14th. It's going to be so special." There were 200 likes. Dozens of comments from cousins tagging each other. No message to me. No call. I sat with my phone in my hand until my knuckles turned white. Then I called Amber. She picked up on the 4th ring, her voice breezy. "Chloe, hi." "I saw the post, Amber. When should I book my flight?" There was a long, sharp silence. "Oh, I didn't think you'd want to come. Dad said he doesn't want any awkwardness on their big day." "Did Dad say that, Amber? Or did you?" I could hear her teeth grit through the line. "I'm just trying to protect everyone, Chloe. You haven't been around. People will ask questions." "Let them ask," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "I'll be there." I hung up. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from a cold, hard resolve. Amber was done narrating my life. I called Mr. Harrison at the bank the next morning. "I need the original mortgage satisfaction certificate," I told him, "and a full notarized statement of every payment made over the last 5 years. Every single one." I was going to that party, and I wasn't bringing a greeting card. I was bringing the truth. The flight from Denver to Columbus was 3 hours and 12 minutes. I spent every second of it with a gold-wrapped box on my lap, my thumb tracing the edge of the paper. Inside wasn't jewelry or a sentimental photo album. It was 60 pages of bank statements, the cold, hard evidence of 5 years of my life, notarized and sealed. I pulled onto Maple Drive at 4:15 p.m. The house looked exactly the same, but today, balloons were tied to the mailbox and a homemade banner hung across the porch. "Happy 40th, Robert and Susan." Cars lined both sides of the street. I counted at least 20. Through the front windows, I could hear the music, something country, turned up just enough to leak through the walls. The front door was only 30 yards away, but it felt like 3,000 miles. When I finally stepped inside, the room went quiet. Conversations dimmed. Forks paused midair. Mrs. Higgins, our old neighbor, was the first to gasp. "Chloe? Goodness, we haven't seen you in years." I scanned the room. Uncle Steve was by the food table. Cousin Tyler was near the window. And then I saw her, Aunt Linda. She was standing by the kitchen with a glass of iced tea, and the moment our eyes met, she froze. She looked at the gold box in my hands, then at me. She knew. She was the only one in that room who knew what I was carrying. Amber was mid-sentence when she saw me. She'd been standing at the head of the table, giving the tail end of a toast. "I'm just so grateful I could give back to you both, especially with the house," she was saying, her voice thick with fake emotion. "Everything I've done, I did out of love." Applause rippled through the room. My father, Robert, nodded from his chair like a king receiving tribute. Then Amber's eyes landed on me. The change was instant. A flicker of panic crossed her face before she plastered on a rehearsed smile and walked toward me. "What are you doing here?" she whispered, leaning in as if to hug me. "I told you Dad doesn't want you here. You're going to ruin their night." "I came to give Mom and Dad their gift," I said, my voice as even as a heartbeat. "Is that some last-minute thing from the airport gift shop?" she sneered. "You should go before Dad sees you." But it was too late. My father had already turned in his chair. My mother, Susan, was staring, her hands trembling as she folded her paper napkin into a tiny square. "Chloe," Mom's voice was small, cracked. "We didn't invite you. Your sister planned this." 60 people heard it. The silence wasn't empty. It was thick and suffocating. I didn't flinch. "I know, Mom. I came anyway. I have something for you and Dad." My father stood up. His jaw was set in that flat line I'd feared my whole life. He didn't ask how I was. He didn't say he missed me. He pointed a finger at Amber. "Your sister's been here, Chloe. Amber paid for this house. She planned this party. She showed up. Where were you?" I walked forward and set the gold box on the table right next to the anniversary cake. The gold paper caught the light, flashing like something precious. My father stared at it for a second, his jaw working side to side. Then he reached out and pushed it. He didn't nudge it. He shoved it with a flat palm strike that sent the box sliding across the tablecloth and off the edge. It hit the hardwood floor with a dull, heavy thud. One corner of the gold paper tore open. "We don't want some cheap peace offering from you," he shouted. His voice reached the back row, the cousins, the neighbors. He wanted them to see my humiliation. "You show up when you feel like it, disappear for years, and you think a box fixes everything?" Amber stood behind him, her chin lifted, her eyes glowing with a quiet, terrifying triumph. No one moved. No one defended me. I looked at my father, my throat tight, but I didn't cry. Not this time. I bent down and picked up the box. I smoothed the torn paper back into place, carefully, like I was fixing a child's bandage. Then I looked at my parents. "I didn't come here to beg," I said. "I came to give you something I spent 5 years working for. But I won't stand here and be humiliated for loving you." I turned around and walked toward the door. The only sound was my shoes on the hardwood. When I reached Aunt Linda, she caught my arm. Her eyes were fierce. "Leave it with me," she whispered. "Trust me, Chloe. I've been quiet long enough." I placed the box in her hands and walked out into the October air. I didn't look back. But behind that closed door, the fuse had been lit. The party tried to recover, but Aunt Linda wasn't having it. As Amber reached for the cake knife, Linda stepped into the center of the room, holding my gold box like a live grenade. "Before anyone touches that cake," she announced, her voice cutting through the forced chatter, "there's something you all need to see." She pulled out the manila envelope and read the bank seal aloud. "Mortgage satisfaction for 1427 Maple Drive, paid in full by Chloe Rose Miller. Total, $137,412. The silence that followed was deafening. 60 pages of statements hit the table, fanning out like a deck of cards. My father's hand, the same one that had shoved my gift, began to shake as he saw my name, repeated 60 times, month after month, for 5 years. Amber's face went ghost white. I... I contributed, she stammered, but Linda didn't flinch. Not a cent, Amber. Every dollar came from Chloe's sweat in Denver while you sat here stealing the credit. By 6 a.m. the next morning, my parents were standing in my driveway in Denver, their eyes red-rimmed from a 14-hour drive and a lifetime of regret. My father didn't make excuses. He just looked at me and whispered the 3 words I'd waited 31 years to hear. I am sorry. I didn't fall into his arms. I made tea. I set boundaries. I told him, I love you, but I will never be invisible again. We're rebuilding now, one Sunday call at a time. I didn't win my parents back with money. I won them back by refusing to let someone else narrate my story. My story is a reminder that being quiet doesn't mean being weak. Sometimes those who make the least noise carry the most weight. Don't ever let anyone else narrate your life or convince you that your kindness is a flaw. Integrity always finds its way to the light. If Chloe's journey touched your heart, please like, subscribe, and hit the bell to join our community. What would you have done in her shoes? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for staying with me until the very end. I'll see you in the next story.